What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Solar Systems, where we help you understand the system your soul goes into. I'm your host, the Royal ArchAngel Michael, and I am cutting out the esoteric middleman and giving you the tools you need to connect yourself right to the source. Now, today is Antares Day, the day where the sun conjuncts the fixed star Antares, the star of the Royal ArchAngel Uriel. So, you know the drill. Without any further ado, let's fly up to a new space and talk about this energy, the influences we feel, and the being itself of ArchAngel Uriel. Alright, so what's going on, everybody? As you might have guessed by the intro, this is the continuation of the Royal Fixed Stars and Archangel series, where we're talking about the second oldest Archangel in this ecliptic, Uriel. Or, in our perspective, the one that came third, but in actuality came second. So, let's break down the physical and spiritual aspects of this energy and this being, and help you understand exactly what this being does and how its energy works. So, let's start with the physical aspects. Alright, let's start off with Antares. So, Antares is a star that is located in the heart of the Scorpion constellation, and right now, based on the movements of the stars in our perspective, we can see it as being around 950 to 10 degrees Sagittarius around this time. So, to say that you have this as a conjunction, as I said in the other two videos, that these fixed stars need to be in 2 degrees to have you feel its influences, but to really be within a degree to say that you have a conjunction with it. Now, if you have this star placed in a birth chart, its energy sort of resembles Mars, Jupiter, and Mercury. A lot of it is about action, willpower, as well as expansion and communication. And we'll get into why all of those things are involved when it comes into Antares as we break down the energies that it gave birth to. Now, the energy of Archangel Uriel ranges from this blue to this really dark blue, almost looking like it's black. Now, the energy of this star is a combination of the constellations of Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. And this is because the spaces that this star gave birth to, or this being, I should say, from our perspective, the 7th, 8th, and 9th house. And from those constellations came Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. Now, let's actually hop into talking about what it means when you put all of those three energies together. So let's first of all explain what the houses are from our perspective, and then the spiritual perspective, the one that came first. So from our perspective, Antares gave birth to the spaces that make up the 7th, 8th, and 9th house, the house that birthed Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius respectively. So the 7th house has to do with your relationships, ways that you relate, as well as things you typically do together, joint endeavors. You know, people like to think of this as like marriage or contracts. The 8th house has to do with occult things that are behind closed doors, right? Things that you don't often see or know about until you take a deep dive into actually trying to find out what is behind those doors. And the 9th house, this has to do with your higher learning, education, religion, philosophy, things of that nature. Let's explain this from the spiritual perspective, because in actuality, Sagittarius is the 4th house, Scorpio is the 5th house, and Libra is the 6th house. So let's actually explain why that is, because as we know, Gabriel's houses, the houses that birthed Pisces, Aquarius, and Capricorn, technically came first. These three preceding Sagittarius, Scorpio, and Libra, what does it mean if we actually look at it from those three coming 4th, 5th, and 6th? Well, after, the ecliptic was created, and you have a status that came from a fixed idea that sort of just flowed into existence, it came out of a dream, what comes next? Well, you have to learn and really see what it is that has been created, and then relate that to others, right? Sagittarius would be the constellation, the energy of learning, higher learning, and trying to understand everyone's perspective and vision. Scorpio is the things that you can't see. What exists that I don't know yet? What exists that I can learn from? What exists that I don't know, that people don't know? And then Libra, the relationship. What is it that I know that they don't know that I can relate? And this energy really gets along with the Cancer, Leo, and Virgo energy, because if you look at it from perspectives, they actually switch. So from our perspective, Sagittarius, Scorpio, and Libra came 7, 8, 9, and Cancer, Leo, and Virgo came 4, 5, 6. But if you switch perspectives, they're opposite. The 9th house is the 4th house, the 8th house is the 5th house, and the 7th house is the 6th house, and they switch. So how can we put these two together and actually understand how they work well together? Well, take the energy of Sagittarius and Cancer together, right? So Sagittarius is mutable fire, understanding visions, being adaptable and changeable to the different ways that people see things. And Cancer, cardinal water, initiating and creating new ways of feeling and adding emotion to things. Now, if you put Cancer in an uncomfortable situation, what's going to happen? Typically, they kind of shut down, right? But when you put Sagittarius in an uncomfortable situation where, it's a new experience, it's going to love that experience because it has opportunities to learn. So, as you can see, Cancer has a lot to learn from Sagittarius, of being able to put itself into new situations where it might be uncomfortable, but where it still has a lot of opportunity to learn. Scorpio and Leo. Now, if you don't already understand how these two constellations and houses relate to each other, well, take a seat, because it's actually a lot more similar than you think. You see, Leo is just the version of Scorpio that is expressive, right? Scorpio likes to keep things deep down until it's time to explode, where Leo wants all of that attention, but it's very careful because it will make you see the things that it wants you to see, where Scorpio will just hide everything. So they can learn from each other. Leo being, where do I need to hide things? And Scorpio, when do I need to let things out? Because if you take a look at every sign and house in the ecliptic, they often have things to teach each other and relate things so that they can all uplift their understanding and work together. And that's the point of having a 360, where eventually you make a whole 360-degree rotation and you can look at all the things you've learned and see where you came from and where you finished at. Libra and Virgo. How do these two relate to each other? Libra likes to relate things and do things together, where Virgo is all about plans, blueprints, jobs, keeping things on a schedule. Once it has the basic ideas, making a plan so they can actually come to fruition. But when it comes to Libra, it likes to do things together and relate those things. So if you were to hand a blueprint to Libra, it's going to make sure that everybody in that room understands that blueprint and why it exists, right? But at the same time, Libras don't exactly like to be in a situation where there's a lot of chaos because it feels uncomfortable in that space. It wants everybody to relate and get along at the same time. Where Virgo doesn't necessarily care, because if it's in a crazy situation, it will do everything it can to sort of bring order to that situation and to have everybody calm down in a sense, depending on what situation it is. So now that we've talked about the influences a little bit, let's talk about Antares' influences for the day, as well as the ArchAngel Uriel, the being that actually gave birth to the star, as well as the influences that came from the space that it created. Alright, so Antares. The energy that we're going to be feeling today has a lot to do with fall and letting go of things that you don't necessarily need to hold on to, because Antares is actually the star that brings fall. So even though we view fall as starting on, September 21st, 20th, somewhere in that area, spiritual fall does not start until the sun conjuncts the star of fall, Antares. Now, you do have your own personal, fall stage, but we can get into that in a whole nother video that goes off the moon sign. Anyway, so a lot of the energy that we're going to be feeling today is not only that of letting go of things that we don't need and things that are holding us down, but also things that we need to learn, vision, and relating those things to other people. And this is where the ArchAngel Uriel comes into, because this being has a lot to do with relating, knowledge, and wisdom. ArchAngel Uriel is usually called the fire of God. And what is fire in spirituality, in astrology? It is vision itself, perspective, fire, seeing and feeling about things. So you throw that all into one super powerful spiritual being, what do you get? You get a being who likes to not only put itself into situations where it can learn things, where it can sort of see what's going on behind closed doors, and the things that is usually kept from the public. Typically, knowledge and awarenesses of things that we think exist but actually do, but you're not told about. And then Libra, relationships, doing things together. So when you put that into Uriel, what do you get? You get a being whose job it is to not only teach you the things that you don't know in a relatable kind of way, in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that not only do you get the information that you want, the information that you need to learn, but also gives you the motivation to actually go around and teach that, and to teach people about spirituality and how things actually work, right? So now let's talk about this being a little bit more. This being actually really, really, really closely watch Lucifer. And why is that? It's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you understand this being wanting to know basically everything, it will put itself into situations that might not necessarily be good or bad in order to learn what it can from that experience. Now, that is a good or bad thing depending on the experience, obviously. But it watched Lucifer really closely. Why? Because Lucifer, at the time of Uriel watching Lucifer, was not only extremely powerful, but also could teach beings a lot. It just didn't. If you remember, Lucifer was sort of expressing its light, getting other spirits lost into that light, and those lost spirits would express that light back onto Lucifer, so he basically got lost into himself. So Uriel could learn from that and wanted to see what Lucifer was going to end up doing before the war on Lucifer started by yours truly. Anyway, the only downside to this energy is you have to manage sort of the attention that you get as well as the praise. Because a lot of the times, a lot of people who carry this energy can let a lot of that go to their head. If you have a bunch of people coming up to you asking you questions and, wanting you to explain things to them and how this works and what does this mean, eventually, if you're not careful, a lot of that can go to your head. Once that starts going to your head, your original direction might have been lost or hidden, and you might have gotten blinded by the attention. Let's actually talk about people who carry this energy. So a lot of people who carry this energy have a lot to do with learning and teaching. It shouldn't be a surprise to you if you find someone who has this energy that is in a teaching kind of role, like literally a teacher or some team manager or something, someone who's not purposely in the spotlight, but they end up being there because they're so good at relating the ideas and wisdom that you guys have to offer in any setting, a business setting, a family setting, school, whatever, you name it. Now, there is one thing that I should mention about Uriel, is that he did not particularly want to come down here to help teach and uplift humans, because obviously it's a very painful experience to come and do that. However, he realized the importance of actually helping people learn and understand the things so they can eventually, lift themselves up and out of the hell that we experience on Earth. So, let's actually backtrack to what I said in the beginning of how Antares has the sort of astrological influences of like Mars, Jupiter, and Mercury. Now, when it comes to talking about all of that together, what does that mean? That is a highly motivated person who will put itself into random new experiences in order to not only learn, but to think and communicate those experiences and knowledge and wisdom that it gained, right? And ultimately, experience is the best way to learn something. Because if you go into a certain experience or situation that you don't usually do or know nothing about, the only thing you can do is come out of that learning something. Even if it didn't end in a necessarily good way, you still have learned something from that experience. And that is sort of how Uriel operates. Through experience, you gain knowledge and wisdom. And once you have that knowledge and wisdom, you relate that information to other people. You don't have to, but this is what Uriel does. It relates knowledge and wisdom. So, if you're trying to find out if you carry Uriel's influences in your birth chart, you want to do a little bit of math. So right now, Antares is about 10 degrees Sagittarius. So let's say in like 1998, it was 946, 947 degrees Sagittarius. Fixed stars move very slowly, about 1 degree every 72 years. So plug into your birth chart, find anything that could come close to that, and do the math. But yeah, so ArchAngel Uriel, the royal fixed star Antares. On Antares Day, get ready to be feeling like you got to let go of some things to put yourself in a new situation or circumstance where you can learn something and use that knowledge and information to consciously experience what you want. Anyways, guys, if you guys like this video, make sure you guys leave a like, comment, subscribe. Check out our Teespring store where we like a whole bunch of merch, as well as the daily alignments right over there that we post every day on our Instagram to help you understand the influences you're going to be feeling for the day. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. But in the meantime, fly high, y'all.